everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am Kirsty and this is Stuck in the Mud. Thank you everyone for watching my channel, for liking and subscribing as well, because everyone that does that helps the channel get bigger and hopefully helps more people out there suffering from OCD and anxiety. In today's video I want to talk about a topic that affected me personally, and to quite a large degree it really put me in a place of fear and a place of despair and desperation. I'll be honest, it really did affect me to a very large degree, and this subject is the law of attraction and New Age spirituality. It all started after I had my fifth child, so this is around 3 years ago. I was in a very bad place mentally after I had her. We were also in the midst of a second lockdown because of the pandemic, and also I had personal things going on. My mum was very ill and it was a very uncertain time, but I just had a baby and I didn't come out of that the way I have in other pregnancies. I came out with a lot of anxiety. I went through a hospital stay as well for a severe infection. So I was in there for quite a few days during the pandemic. And mentally, I was not in a great place. In fact, I was in a very, very bad place. I think everyone during the time of the pandemic, we were all searching for answers. We're in unprecedented times. Everything was just strange. Everything was weird. It wasn't how life normally is. And I think in times like that, we do search for the bigger picture and why are these things happening? And a lot of people were uploading content to platforms like YouTube all around the practice of the law of attraction and New Age spirituality. And I think it became such a big thing over that time. And it's not something that was new. It had been around for years. Things like this have been talked about for a long time. And also when the book The Secret was published, which I think was quite a few years ago now. And so it has been around for years and years, for decades. But during this time, I think there was definitely a large proportion of people watching this kind of content on platforms like this. I was one of the people that kind of got sucked into all this New Age stuff and spirituality during this time. And I read a lot about the law of attraction when I haven't really looked into it before. And I was coming across a lot of videos online. I was in a very bad place. I wasn't in a very good place at all. I was in a lot of despair and anxiety, and I was having many panic attacks. And looking back, none of it was helped by this kind of material, because OCD and the law of attraction do not mix. The law of attraction talks a lot about manifesting. So manifesting your thoughts, and also that your thoughts create your reality, which is very, very over-simplistic way of describing it. I mean, in itself, I think it's really wrong to call it a law, because I think it is something that you actually believe in or you don't. And I think it actually is detrimental to people suffering from mental health issues like this. And when I spoke about this with my therapist, because I was really way down the rabbit hole with all of this and really in a state of fear and panic, it was a really dark time, because I was so fearful that the thoughts I was thinking would come true. And the more I thought about it, I felt like the more that would be a possibility. And it's just not the case. And this is why I really despise a lot of the videos I see online. I see the odd one pop up today. I usually just scroll on by, because I really know it's not what it's portrayed as online, if it is anything at all. And that's the thing, no one can actually really prove it. And these books like The Secret will talk about manifesting your thoughts, whether that be positive or negative. And this is where I got hooked in, because I was like, well, I think of negative thoughts all the time. It's the worst thing you could ever say to anyone suffering from OCD and anxiety, is to say that sentence that your thoughts can create your reality. It's shameful to say that to anyone. And I would really like to speak to some of these creators that do make this content and say, you are not helping people. You might think you're helping people, but there's a large proportion of people out there that this is actually detrimental to their health, their mental health, their lives. It's actually having the opposite effect that you think it would, because we're now completely terrified of our thoughts and what that could manifest in our lives. It's the worst thing you could say to someone suffering from this. And I was one of those people. I was in a constant state of fear. My whole reality just felt skewed, because nothing felt real anymore. I was so terrified of everything that came in my head. I just wanted to be asleep all the time because I was so scared of my thoughts. And that is not how you treat someone with OCD and anxiety. And to say that kind of comment to them it's so terrible. It's shameful that you could say that to someone, especially if you could just stop and understand what they're going through. And it's not their fault. It's not my fault that I had all these intrusive thoughts. I was in a very bad place, and we are biologically different. We're made up differently. We can't help the thoughts that we have. Thoughts just happen to us. We can't control them. And the way they put this whole law of attraction across is that in some way we can control our thoughts. So we've got to think good thoughts all the time, good vibes only. You can't think negative thoughts, because that would mean that something bad would happen in your life. It's a terrible thing. It's like you're attracting all this bad stuff into your life. And if, I would hate anyone to go through something adverse in their life, but people do every day, and it's no fault of their own. And I think this is the thing. It became, with the law of attraction, a lot of victim blaming. Like if someone was going through a really terrible time, that they've brought it on themselves somehow. And that's a terrible thing to say to anyone going through a really rough time. And they would probably say that I manifested the fact that I have OCD. It's really ridiculous, some of the things that people will come out with in terms of the law of attraction and how you manifest things. And I got so stuck in that cycle of being terrified. I was forcing myself to flip round thoughts. So if I had a negative thought, I had to think a positive thought. I was like researching positive quotes and things I could constantly reiterate, and just, it became an obsession in itself that I was I had to be positive. I had to think that way all the time. I had to have good vibes because I need to attract good things in my life. But I wasn't, how could I be attracting good things in my life? I was in a constant state of fear and panic. I was not in a good place. And I think it has the opposite effect. You can't live your life like that. Everybody going through life has ups and downs in their life. There's going to be peaks and there's going to be troughs. And, people have adverse things happen to them. I was in a bad place in terms of my mum going through a serious illness. And then, of course, that begged the question then, if these people are saying this, then, did she make this happen to herself? I really started to question everything. And that, like I say, it all became a big obsession where I was trying to work everything out and figure out why bad things happen. And there isn't an answer why bad things happen. Things happen to everyone. Look at children that get really ill. They're just innocent beings, and they deserve compassion, not someone telling them that it's their fault that they're ill, or this is what I don't like about this practice of the law of attraction, is people seem to lose all sense of compassion for people, and love it. This is what, for me, and I am quite a spiritual person, that it's all about. and to put someone in a state of fear over the things you're trying to sell, because let's be honest, a lot of these people are selling a product when they're making these videos and selling their books, and I know there's a lot of the big people that do this, like I said, The Secret with Rhonda Byrne, and I take issue with some of the things that Joe Dispenza will say, and they don't realize some of the damage they can be doing with the things they say. And I get that they may have good intentions, but I think if they could stop and realize that the damage they could do with someone that was suffering from a mental illness, are they going to turn around and say, well, this is all your fault? It's not your fault. What we need right now when we're going through something like that is compassion and empathy. We don't need someone telling us that we've brought it on ourselves, that our negative thoughts are creating our reality, because the way it came across to me as someone suffering from OCD was that your negative thoughts, those literal thoughts, can make my 3D reality happen. So this is magical thinking. This is, and it's, the only way I can say it, this is OCD magical thinking. And that's how it's sold, the law of attraction. It's sold as magical thinking, like you can just think something into existence by just simply thinking it. And that's not the case. And this is why it's misinterpreted, because they should never use those kind of statements, your thoughts create your reality, because everything starts with a thought, but we need action. I can sit here all day long, sit in this room and never go out. That big mansion that I want with a pool, it's not going to happen unless I work for it. I need to put in the hard work. And I think, especially during the pandemic, like I was talking about earlier, I think people were really everyone was in a really dark place. We really needed something to keep us going and positive during that time. And I guess that's why a lot of people hooked onto it. For me, it didn't hook onto me for that reason, but because I was hooked onto the fact that I had to change my negative thoughts, because I'm having these constant negative thoughts all day. I thought, well, that's I'm something going to materialize because I'm thinking these uncomfortable negative thoughts all day, and that's just not the case. It's not that. If it is a thing, which I'm not going to I'm not going to sit here and say that this is definitely a thing, because who knows? Who can explain everything in the universe? They can't, and they can't say that for sure. And I think it's really bad to sell something like this that they can't prove it. There's nothing that they're saying that they can prove, and to sell it as a magical thinking, a wishful thinking kind of thing that will actually make your thoughts materialize just magically in front of you. It's just not how life works. Life works by hard work, and we can have thoughts, intrusive thoughts and negative thoughts all day long. It doesn't mean they're going to materialize because we're thinking about them. And I really want to stress that, because I urge any of you watching this, please don't go down that route with this. I was very doubtful myself, being the doubting disorder. I really don't want to send anyone down the path I was with this, because if you haven't heard of this, the last thing I want is for someone to get hooked into this as an obsession, because it's not good, and I would hate anyone to actually go down that road that I went down with this, because it wasn't good. And the fact that your thoughts create your reality is just the wrong way of saying this, but because it seems easy, because we think, well, if I can think something like something really nice that I would like in my future, and I can just think it into an existence, wouldn't that be an amazing thing? But win the lottery, it doesn't work like that. Unless I've gone out and bought that ticket, it's definitely not gonna happen. So can you see what I'm saying here? These thoughts are great because they can put plans into action, and then we can actually do something about it physically, actually do something about it, and actually do an action to make that thing happen. But in terms of just your thoughts alone, creating your reality is just not the case, and it should never be sold like that, because it's actually causing a lot of distress to many people out there. I was reading comments on some videos on YouTube about the practice of the law of attraction in terms of OCD and mental health disorders, and there's so many people out there that have really latched onto this, and not for the right reasons, because they're just constantly trying to figure out now whether their thoughts are going to create their reality, and it's not going to happen. That's not how it works. Thoughts are great, and it's great when we have nice positive thoughts, and they can set about great positive actions, physical actions that we go out and do and live life fully. And then we can have negative thoughts that we get hooked into, and intrusive thoughts, and we get so far down the rabbit hole with OCD that our lives are limited, and we're not actually following it up with good actions. We're just in, that's as far as any of it goes. We're just thinking you can think thoughts all day long. It's nothing bad is gonna happen because of that. And I really, really want to stress that in this video. I don't want anyone down that road that I went down with this. This is not what it's about, and it's misinterpreted massively online, and it's shameful. It really is, that people can blame people for adverse things in their lives. It really is. Where's the compassion? Where's the empathy for people going through a rough time? Just to stand there and say it's all your fault because you thought a bad thought, or even if you're thinking things all day long, it doesn't matter. That's not going to create something in your reality. The only thing it's going to create is the fact that you're not maybe living your life fully, or you're just so far hooked into your intrusive thoughts and your rituals and your compulsions that we're not actually living life. And that's the only way it can affect your life. That's all it is. The thoughts, the content of the thoughts doesn't matter. That's nothing's going to happen about that. Then none of that's going to be in your reality, because that's not how OCD works. OCD is just intrusive thoughts. We can let them be there. We can let them coexist with us, because it doesn't mean that they don't say anything about us, because OCD thoughts, they're so far apart from who we are. They don't deserve our attention. And this is why I always talk about this in my videos, to let those thoughts be there. It takes their power away. The more we invest in them, and this is where I was with the law of attraction, the more I invested in it and tried to work it out, I just made the whole thing bigger. And it went over for quite a large portion of time that I was so kind of obsessed with it, and so scared of my thoughts, fearful of what I was thinking, and no one should live their life that way. Thoughts are thoughts. They're just thoughts. They have no effect on our lives, and unless we do an action. And that's the thing, an action, and I'm talking about acting out on a thought. I can have a thought, a really awful thought, like of committing an awful act, harm OCD. I could have a thought of doing something terrible to, say, my child, and it doesn't mean that's going to happen because I've thought it. It's just a thought. And OCD goes after what you value and what you love, and because I love my children dearly, it's going to go after that, and that's not going to manifest because I've just thought it. It doesn't work like that. And also, in terms of, I think it's terrible when like I said earlier, in terms of health, and people will say, well, you brought this on yourself, or you stubbed your toe this morning because you brought that on yourself. It's just ridiculous, some of the things they will come out with. And also in terms of manifesting positive things, a lot of these creators, some of these big creators, they'll say things like, well, if it didn't happen in your life, it's because you're not doing it right. You're not believing it. You're not doing it enough or doing it right. It's ridiculous, the things that they will come out with because it didn't work for someone. And that's the thing. I mean, OCD is the doubting disorder after all. You know, I doubted this all along, and you know, it just kept me stuck and in a really bad place, and in a place where I wasn't living my life and living it fully. And don't go there. Don't go down the rabbit hole with it. And if you do come across this kind of thing, just realize that it's not the way these people try and sell it to people. And I do think they really do, you know, play on vulnerable people that are in bad places and think that they can just think their way out of their problems, and that's just not the case. And we should be able to feel our emotions, and this is part of the way we get better from OCD. We don't push our emotions away. We let them be there. It's a whole different thing. You know, people will try to talk about this as, you know, you've got to change your vibe and high vibe, and, you know, you've got to have high vibration, and to do that, you've got to think positively all the time. You know, like I said, you know, good vibes only. That's not the right way to be. It's just not. That is not how you heal from anything. You know, if you need to experience your emotions and move through them. It's not the same. You know, you can't just flip it and just say, well, I'm feeling really terrible today, but I've got to have good vibes only. You're just suppressing it. That's not a healthy way to move through emotions. And that's what I would say to anyone with this. And the way you heal from OCD is you let those thoughts come in. You know, it's just, we have to let them be there, and they will dissolve on their own. And that's not accepting the thought as true. That's not at all. You know, we don't have to like it, and it doesn't say anything about you because you're thinking that particular thought. It might be the most horrendous thought you think you could possibly think. It doesn't say anything about you. It's just a thought. And we can let those be there, as we do with emotions, because when we can feel like a lot of anxiety in ourselves, and we let those thoughts be there, you know, we let those feelings be there, those sensations be there, because that's how we deal with it. We let them dissolve on their own, because there's no point in trying to flip the way you feel. You can't do that. It's just making the whole issue bigger, and it's making OCD bigger and stronger. We've got to take its power away, and I talk a lot about this in my other videos. So I really hope this video has given you a bit of insight into the law of attraction and New Age spirituality, and also make you realize that it's not how it's portrayed in these videos and in these books, and it's wrong for them to do that, especially with people suffering from mental health disorders like OCD and anxiety. It's really detrimental to healing and actually getting better. And I want you to realize that this is not real. It's not the way it's played out in these videos and in these books. Just don't buy into what they're saying, because it's so oversimplified and it's just not true. So I really hope this has given you some good insight into this subject, and I would love to hear your comments. Let me know what you think about this topic. Is it something that you have worried about or have come across in your journey with OCD? Because it's very hard to miss it these days, I'll be honest. You know, you go online and you see a lot of videos on this subject. So let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video.